And welcome to another edition of Speaking for Him. And here is your host, Andrew Damascene. Okay, could somebody please get the ladies out of the studio? Andrew's on his way in, but he's having a hard time right now. Okay? Can we get him out of here? Get him away from the studio, please. Shut the door, okay? Okay.
All right. Well, that was some sort of introduction. And
the ladies like you, Andrew. Like, what can I do?
I like to think so. I'm still looking for that one lady, but that's another podcast for another time. And so here we are on another edition of the Speaking for Him podcast, and today we have another movie review. And I'm kind of going solo on this review, although I will get some thoughts hopefully from Chad throughout the podcast, because I think we'll cover some
my homework. Let's just say it like it is. Some
topics that he can comment on. But we do try to watch these films together, or together apart, as the case may be.
You've never once invited me over. You never once made me popcorn.
Well, we need to figure out some ways to do some movies together, because I do have, speaking of movies, before we get into this one, a few movies that are coming out for Christians in Christian cinema this spring and summer that I do want to review. So we'll have to talk about that off mic. But anyway, here we are today to talk about Ben-Hur. And Ben-Hur came out in 2016. It is a remake of a 1959 Charlton Heston epic, which I have not yet watched. And that one was a remake of a 1925 silent film. So Ben-Hur has been done a few times, and we'll get more into that. But first, let's have Chad give our quote of the day.
I've seen too much what hate can do. My father is burned up with it. But I've heard of a young rabbi who says forgiveness is greater and love is more powerful than hatred. I believe it. Ben-Hur.
And I should have established that this is from the movie Ben-Hur, but it's actually Ben-Hur's wife, Esther, who gives this quote, and she, of course, is talking about Jesus. And let's run the movie trailer for Ben-Hur, and then I will get into more about the movie.
No matter where you're from, this ship is your body. That drum is your heartbeat. And your God is the glory of Rome. First, believe that.
How long were you a slave?
5 years.
What is your name?
Ben-Hur. My family was one of the most respected in Jerusalem. Welcome home.
Please, I need you to tell me who An's enemies are.
Masala, I won't name names until we were betrayed. By my own brother.
Masala! You know we've done nothing wrong. Rome's calling for blood. Crucify them.
No!
The world you live in is Rome's. Their laws, their power.
I won't let Masala go unpunished for what he's done to us. Our mother and sister. Was it a quick death?
Go, go, go!
Coward! My family, they deserve justice for what's happened to them.
There is a way. In the arena, there is no law. Racing is a blood sport. If you lose, you die. If your brother is the pride of Rome, defeat him and you'll defeat an empire. Then you will have your vengeance.
You have a voice. People would follow you. I would follow you.
Go, go, go!
Should have stayed away.
You should have killed me.
I will.
Remember, first to finish,
last to die.
Come on! Are we we having fun now, brother? Stand and fight! Stand up now!
Okay, so this was the trailer for Ben-Hur. And I was trying to think, as I was watching it, what it kind of reminded me of. And I think what it reminded me of the most was probably the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments, because you saw in there that there was an Egyptian Pharaoh's son who was raised with Moses, and so they were raised as brothers. Of course, this isn't part of the biblical narrative, but they were raised as brothers, basically, even though one of them was Egyptian and one of them was Hebrew. And so when Moses decides to defend his brothers, his Hebrew brethren, then their brother relationship is over. And that's kind of what I thought of when I thought of the show. Because Messala was a Roman who was brought into Ben-Hur's household, and they were raised as brothers, but then they went their separate ways. And there's all kinds of drama associated with that. The first thing I want to say about this film is that I was very confused about the timeline for this film. And I found out that the reason why was because the book is a lot longer than the movie, which is not surprising, but it covers a lot of years. The book Ben-Hur actually starts with the wise men coming to Jerusalem to find Jesus as a young child. And it follows through basically the whole life of Jesus up until the death of Jesus. And I'm not sure if it covers the resurrection or not, but basically when Lew Wallace wrote the book Ben-Hur, his goal was to write a Christian novel. He was a Civil War general, and he took up writing after he got out of the service. Excuse me. But anyway, he decided to write this book, and originally his focus was going to be on the travels of the Magi, and he decided to make it the whole story, the whole narrative, with Jesus on the outskirts and focusing in on this rich young prince, basically, Ben-Hur. And so the whole story is him coming to a realization about many things. Messala joins the Roman legion, as would be expected of him as an actual Roman, and basically turns his back on the Ben-Hur family, even though they've done so much for him. And then throughout the film, you have things like him resisting violence, but then realizing that he has to do something to help his family. And he ends up helping some zealots who are fighting against Rome, and then getting falsely accused and put in prison, which leads to the galley where he becomes a oarsman on one of those big war boats that the Romans had, and spends several years doing that before he gets washed up on shore, picked up by a horse trader, who then trains him to be a chariot driver, and then he faces Messala in a chariot race toward the end of the film. And then, of course, wins. Messala is badly injured, and at first wants to retaliate against Ben-Hur, and then they eventually reconcile. So that's the basic synopsis of the film. And the interesting thing about it is that the story of Jesus is kind of interwoven throughout, which is kind of neat, except that the timeline was confusing. First time we meet Jesus, he is actually working as a carpenter, and Ben-Hur and his wife Esther walk past him doing carpentry work, and he says something about loving your enemies and doing good to others. And then he also helps Ben-Hur get water when he's being dragged away by the Romans to be put into slavery. And then later on, Ben-Hur would give water to Jesus as he's being led away to Calvary. So there's all these things that happen with Jesus kind of in the periphery. And so I really like it because it covered a lot of the last things that Jesus said and things of that nature. And so that part was good. Negatives about the movie is because of the constraints of time, I'm sure. Because like I've heard that the Charlton Heston Ben-Hur is about an hour or an hour and a half longer than the one that came out a couple of years ago. So I think they probably left some plot lines out that they could have carried forth, and it could have been a little bit less confusing. My favorite character, I think, other than the principals, was Esther, Ben-Hur's wife, because she was very faithful to Jesus. She was committed to being a loving person and a loving wife, even when Ben-Hur was struggling and not going through, not doing well. And I think the biggest lesson that I took away from the film was just that God changes lives, and he really, through the whole of the movie, Ben-Hur really goes through a metamorphosis from being kind of an angry guy to then kind of being at the foot of the cross weeping. And that's really what the cross does for us, is it changes us, hopefully. I mean, I think it changes everybody. Either you're hardened toward it and become even more hard than you were, or it softens you and you get to know the Master who hung on the cross for us. So I do think it changes everyone. And then my least favorite, I don't think I had a specific least favorite. I didn't like the Roman soldiers, but it was cool that they they were Romans, so they acted the way they were supposed to act, and it was just neat seeing how Ben-Hur went through his trials. He got in a shipwreck and was able to escape, as I said, and he meets up with this horse trader who is played by Morgan Freeman, who I don't agree with on a lot of issues, but he certainly can act. And who doesn't?
And he's got the coolest voice ever.
Yeah, who doesn't want Morgan Freeman to do a voice in their commercial? I think pretty much everybody.
Maybe we should have him redo your outro.
I won't let Kevin McCreary listen to this episode, or if he does, I will apologize. No, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah.
I didn't know, A, that was your name, and B, that would, I thought it was a joke.
But anyway, yes, we'll move on. But yeah, we should have Kevin back on the show and you can explain that whole thing to him. But anyway.
I think I'll be sick that day.
Here we go. And, continuing on, I liked how forgiveness was displayed in the film. That's probably the biggest lesson here, was the fact that forgiveness is possible. But it's only possible through Jesus. And even though that wasn't spoken implicitly, it wasn't spoken explicitly. It was spoken implicitly. And I really liked the way they did that. And so, I am just going to wrap this up and let you know that I would rate this film a solid 4 out of 5.
That's good.
And I really encourage, people to watch this film. If you have young children, you might want to consider that before you do. There is violence. There's not a lot of goriness to the violence, but I would still say, tweens to younger teens, would be the youngest that I would recommend to watch this film. But I would encourage you, I'm pretty sure you can pick it up on DVD at this point, or it is currently streaming, at least at this point, as of this recording, free on Amazon Prime. So if you use Amazon Prime for your shipping anyway, there's a lot of free video content that's available to you if you have Amazon Prime. So check out Ben-Hur 2016 version on Amazon Prime. Give it a watch. Eventually I think I may start reviewing some classic films, so I may come back to this and after I've viewed Charlton Heston's. We will see. We'll see what happens. I hope that you are enjoying the Speaking for Him podcast. We're still looking to see how we can make this show better, so please give us any feedback that you want to at the end of the show. Just make sure to keep it civil and free of profanity, and we'll be glad to accept it and enjoy it and incorporate what we can into the show. And so I hope that this was an encouragement to you and that you will seek out this film to watch it, because I think it was very well done and very honoring to Jesus, even though it's not specifically a Christian film. So I was very excited about that. And I think that's all I have for you this week. But like I said, stay with us. We have exciting things coming up and we're looking forward to it. So this is Andrew Gomison saying, keep serving the best of masters and have a great weekend.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Your host has been Andrew Gomison, founder of Speaking for Him. For more information on today's show and to leave us comments and voicemails, visit speakingforhim.blogspot.com. You can find Andrew's ministry at speakingforhim.com. That's speaking, the number 4, HIM. You can also interact with us at facebook.com/speakingforhim and on Twitter @SpeakingForHim. And when you look for us on iTunes and Stitcher, let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a rating and review.